Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. We have a lot of stuff going on. Fires all over the place. Food shortages. I'll get to that at the very end. Let's get started. So overall, the overarching kind of idea of what happened this week was the fear of the Delta variant, because the United States, for example, even is talking about more lockdowns, even though there are some states, for example, like Florida, that passed law saying that they can't do any lockdowns or vaccine mandates. But that's really kind of the overarching idea of what's kind of going on in the world right now and what's going on and affecting the markets. 88% of the companies have reported bigger sales than quarter two of last year, then much better than analysts expected, which is obviously, last year, quarter two was the middle of the pandemic. Everything was shut down. Of course, they're going to do better, right? U.S. overall, the Dow was negative. S&P 500 was negative. NASDAQ was negative as well, even though on Tuesday we did have some record highs intraday and then the markets pulled back. Overseas market news. We have the situation going on in China, where China's going after pretty hard a lot of these tech heavyweights like Alibaba and Didi, for example. If you guys don't remember last week, I talked to you guys about how they're going after Didi hard, which is Uber's competitor, the Chinese competitor. And so there's a lot of concerns about that. So generally in Asia, we had a lot of negative activity, especially in Hong Kong, which was actually the biggest loser overall in Asia this week and in the Far East. California, and I put this here because this is something that I wanted to mention to you in regards to the food shortages. We're having all of these natural disasters around the world, and part of the reason why I report them here is because, one, I do think that they're going to get worse, right? I've mentioned to you guys in previous videos that in the next 10 years, I think that we're going to have a lot of economic problems, a lot of social problems, a lot of environmental disasters, and that, I think, is starting to affect a lot of things like food production. In California, for example, this is the second year of a record drought where a lot of the reservoirs are not at a low, but at a record low. And now they're starting to consider an emergency order that is going to not allow the farmers that grow the food in certain part of the states, in this scenario, North California, because they need to make sure that they fill the reservoirs that powers the electricity. So they'll have electricity, they just won't have any food, basically. So in further irony, and I want to do a video about the crisis in California and why nobody wants to live there. In further irony, they want everybody to switch to electric cars to be able to save the environment, but then they have blackouts, so you won't be able to use your car. And so this is something that's really important because we have fires, we have freezing, we have droughts, we have inundations, and a lot of this is affecting the production of food. A lot of countries, for example, have grain stores. They have, the silos with the corn, and they have reserves of food, but a lot of those are starting to reach record lows, and we're even having some of the countries that are starting to limit exportation of some of their food as well. So, you might want, maybe the preppers were right. You might want to start looking for some extended food. There's these companies that sell, food that lasts for 25 years, for example. Overall, what this means, and this was the kind of end-all, be-all goal of explaining this to you, if we run out of food or the shortages of food, then obviously the price is going to continue to go up. So if California enacts this, and even though we're having other problems in other parts of the world, that means that food prices are even going to go even higher, which the central bank chair Powell, the guy who kind of the boss, let's say, of the central bank in the United States, he finally admitted that the inflation was higher than expected, and we're expecting to have it for longer. I'll give you his exact quote here in a second. European markets for the week were mixed. Istanbul up 3.05%. Latin American and Canadian markets mixed as well. Canada was at 0.19% positive. Africa and the Middle was mixed. Saudi Arabia taking the crown in the Middle East at 2.02%. And then in the far, far East, I mentioned to you guys already, Hong Kong was the biggest loser there due to the activities of the Chinese government going after a lot of these technological big tech heavyweights. Bitcoin and other news. Bitcoin surged this week 22.54% to just over 41,000 on the news report that Amazon was going to start accepting crypto payments. Well, Amazon came out and said, no, that's false. We're not planning to accept crypto payments. But even though they said no, it still stayed at an elevated level, right? It exploded this week. Malaysia banned Binance, the largest exchange in the world, and gave them a 14-day notice to completely shut down. I know I'm looking. I'm gonna bring the mic with me, but I'm looking for those people that maybe they're here. I'm looking for those people that said that cryptos couldn't be regulated. Remember what I always told you guys? I love the idea behind cryptos. I love the concept of decentralized money where the government doesn't control it. But the government is the government for a reason, and they're not going to allow money to be decentralized. And a lot of people in the comments told me, no, it can't be banned. It's decentralized. Well, the UK already banned Binance. Malaysia already banned Binance. If they start banning all the exchanges, where are you going to buy crypto at? See? Now, what's really interesting about this at the same time is that we're kind of having these two extremes in crypto world and in Bitcoin world, where we have kind of these negative situations happening, but at the same time we have some positive situation happening. In Colombia, for example, there's a commercial bank called Banco de Bogotá, which are going to start allowing money transfers, the first of its country in Colombia, to do crypto transfers with an exchange called Buda.com. In addition to that, we also have a situation where a city in Spain called El Campello, they are going to start doing a trial with the digital euro, which, remember, I mentioned to you guys before that the Central Bank of Europe registered the trademark digital euro. And Ukraine Central Bank as well is now officially allowed to be able to issue digital money, or, I don't know what the currency is in Ukraine, but the digital version of it. And this is what I've told you guys all along. The future isn't cryptos. The future is blockchain. And a lot of these countries now, and especially, not right now, but in the future, what we're going to be using is government coin. This is what I told you guys from the very beginning. So I just find it fascinating how we have these two extremes going on, and it'll be interesting to see what happens and what wins out, right? I would prefer that Bitcoin, becomes money, for example, world money, but I highly doubt it because I don't think the governments are going to allow that to happen, because that's the reason why they have control. Commodities, overall oil is higher, even though there's a lot of worries about the Delta variant. A lot of commodity analysts as well have been saying from Credit Suisse that the gold market, or the prices of gold, they cannot ignore the falling bond yields for so long, and that very soon we're going to get back to the 1900 level, and most likely the record high that we reached last year, which was $2,067.15, August of 2020. Silver for the week went up 1.14%. Gold went up 0.64%. And there's a great commodity, which is the like button there on YouTube. It helps a lot with the algorithm, so go ahead and give it a like. Let those likes go up, because it helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And don't forget that you guys can listen to the podcast of this version. All the videos that I do now, I always do them in audio form if you guys want to listen as well. That way, if you're driving to work, you want to know what happened. A lot of you guys have given me great feedback on the videos because, they're quick. You kind of know what's going on. Bam, 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 right? No politics. And so keep those comments coming. Don't forget the like button. Great commodity to buy with the rising prices. Hit it now before the price goes up for the like button. Financial and banking news. As I mentioned to you guys, the U.S. Fed Chair Powell said that they're not even on the radar yet for increasing interest rates. In addition to, they're nowhere near the fact that they're going to stop literally buying $120 billion worth of asset purchases. So if you guys don't know what's going on with the federal government, they're literally they flip a switch, they create money, and then they grab the money, and then they buy the U.S. debt with it. And so the fact that they're not even on the radar of increasing rates yet is because we're at a point now where the debt is so high that if they do raise interest rates, that we're going to start paying more in interest rate payments rather than the actual debt itself. It's like if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt, eventually it gets to the point where you're paying more in interest on the payments rather than the actual payments themselves. And so there's a situation now where the central bank can't do it. So they're saying one thing, but in reality, it's another. And another thing that he said, and I thought this was hilarious, was that inflation, he said, Powell, which is, the boss, the big boss in the central bank, that inflation could be, quote, higher and more persistent, unquote, than expectations. So this is just hilarious. The actual inflation rate that they're reporting is at 5.1%, which is 13-year high. And I'm going to do a full video on this, but I just want to explain it very briefly because I think all of us are seeing the increases in the stores, right? And if you guys are watching here on Instagram or YouTube, leave me a comment of what you guys have seen, or, what you're spending, if maybe it's gone up a little bit, or if you used to spend, let's say, $1,000 on food a month and now it's $1,200 or $1,300. Let me know there in the comments, because I'd be interested to know, you guys from the UK and Canada and different parts of the US, how things have gone up. I personally believe that the inflation is at about 20-30%. So the inflation rate that they're reporting is 5.1%. The official data that they use in the CPI to report the inflation, 1/3 of that report is the rental prices. And so there are companies like Realtor.com that keep track of the increases of the people that are renting their properties, and the actual prices have gone up 25%. So the question begs, if the actual market rate has gone up 25%, according to Realtor.com, which is one of the biggest, it's like Zillow, for example, it's one of the biggest sites where people post their properties and their rentals, then why is it only 5.1%? In relation to terms, if you really do the calculation, if it was the actual rate, which is 25%, then the inflation that reported to the government should be about 11%. You see where I'm getting at? And so this is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So prepare yourself. U.S. debt ceiling is coming back as well. They canceled it because of the emergency for the COVID. The actual debt right now is over $28.5 trillion, which, that number, what does it mean? It really is in terms of the size of the economy. So we're at about 128.3% of the GDP. And anytime a country gets to 100% of GDP, that's when they start having the problems. Right now, the U.S. is 6th highest in the world in terms of percentage of GDP, and it's only increasing. I don't think we'll get to number 1 because they're over 200%, which I think it's Greece or Japan possibly, but it's not good long term. And so in order to go ahead and pass the debt ceiling, to increase the amount of debt, because the amount of debt that we're issuing with all the COVID stimulus is just unprecedented, they're going to need a majority vote. And right now the Senate is split, with the tiebreaker being Kamala Harris, the vice president. Political news: a recent ABC News IPSOS poll taken late spring and early summer this year looked at how Americans view their future, and a lot of them are taking an increasingly negative view about the direction of the United States. Economic news: U.S. Labor Department is reporting that more than 2 times the amount of unemployment benefits are still there from the pre-pandemic levels, even though this week it went down by about 20,000. We're still way, way above where we used to be, basically, which is not a good thing. U.S. GDP reported growth in quarter 2 was 6.5% at an annualized rate. This is less than what they expected it to be, which was 8.4. So it grew a lot. That number is a very good number, right? 3% is kind of the baseline. So 6.5% is great, but it's not as great as it was supposed to be. So this sounds like the government isn't doing things the correct way, because the analysts were expecting one thing and we got another. In corporate news, Tesla absolutely smashed earnings. They reported over $1 billion in net income and profit in quarter 2. First time they ever surpassed $1 billion in profit. Amazon also didn't meet the analyst expectations, so they went down quite a bit this week, even though their revenue went up by 25% in quarter 2. I'd give you all the companies, every single one, but for the only thing you need to know is about 88% of the companies have already reported, and they have bigger sales than what analysts predicted. But those, we always seem to be interested in the technological companies, so I'll give you guys those numbers. In trade news, there's 4 countries in Eastern Europe that are going to start trading with each other while they look for the membership into the EU. We have Albania, North Macedonia, and Serbia. They open their borders to other citizens and also product. Starting in 2023, there's going to be no restrictions, so somebody can go from one country to the other and work without a visa, which is great. In technology, 59 million Americans across 5 states can no longer buy the Alienware desktop, which is Alienware is the gaming version of Dell's computers, due to the new power consumptions in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington, all socialist republics. And this is one thing that I think is really unusual, because I'm going to do this video on the English side as well. I'm going to start ramping it up for all you guys. This kind of new world order, right? The World Economic Forum talked about their 2030 Great Reset. And I think it's crazy, because you're supposed to be able to buy whatever you want, right? You pay for your electric, who cares how much you use? Well, now they even want to control what you buy based on the amount of electric that you use. You see where this is going, right? This isn't going to stop here. And so the irony, for example, which I mentioned in the beginning, for example, a place like California, they want to increase renewables, but they're having brownouts and blackouts. Texas had the same problem. Germany, if you guys remember last year, because of the winter, if they didn't have their nuclear reactors and fossil fuels, they would have lost power because they're going almost 100% renewable. Makes you kind of wonder. Other than that, investment news signal that the housing boom may be over in numerous markets. The sales of newly built U.S. homes dropped in June to the lowest level since the early days of the pandemic. In April 2020, new single-family homes dropped 6.6% at an annualized rate, which was 19.4% from May, and June also was lower. So now they're expecting an increase of 3.4% in June, but the trend is not very good. Monday, Amazon and Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos, richest man in the world, previous CEO of Amazon, second man to go to space via private means without a government, is saying that he wants to offer up to $2 billion in cost to NASA to give them the contract to take people to the moon. So after NASA basically gave the contract to SpaceX, which is it's a private company, but Elon Musk founded it. Now they want to come in afterwards and say, hey, no, wait, we'll give you $2 billion, a max of cost. So we'll pay up to $2 billion if you give us the contract or part of the contract. Sneaky. U.S. restaurants having a lot of trouble opening after the COVID due to a lot of different situations. Obviously, we have cost increases. Again, remember, the government is only reporting 5.1%. I think it's 30%. They also have employee shortages and actual product shortages that they're not able to find. I'll give you an example. For seafood, prices have risen 11% in the last 12 months. But the inflation prices are only going up 5.1%. Don't worry. We'll just pay attention to the official numbers. Now, they're even struggling to hire back staff, and in many cases, they're having to pay people double what they were paying them before. And unvaccinated American workers are facing a lot of pressure to be able to go ahead and get the vaccine. A lot of private companies are starting to consider mandating proof of the vaccine to be able to enter restaurants. And President Biden this week also passed a mandate saying that everybody that's a federal employee will have to get vaccinated or face a lot of strict protocols, including testing and masking, etc. Don't forget that they said that if you were vaccinated, we were able to not wear a mask, and so now the CDC said that you have to wear a mask. So just get vaccinated because they say so. It's good for the society as a whole. International events. North and South Korea in talks again after a joint liaison office in North Korea was demolished last year by North Korea. So they've been exchanging letters. So it looks like those relations are starting to improve. It's most likely because North Korea is having a serious problem with food shortages. Israel, the first country to approve a third booster shot of the Pfizer vaccine. I should say just of the vaccine, not the Pfizer vaccine in general. But they're approving it for people that are above 60 years old, and which are the people that are most susceptible to the COVID, and 60% of the population in Israel has been vaccinated. Unusual facts this week: when a team of scientists began analyzing the events influence of world climate in 2022, check this out, this is very interesting, they found that it wasn't COVID-19 that actually made the world cooler. So the idea was people were driving less carbon emissions, carbon, which is 0.07% of the atmosphere. They actually found that the crazy bushfires, those huge forest fires that we had last year in 2019 and 2020 in Australia, actually there was so much smoke that it actually cooled the southern hemisphere. Pretty amazing, isn't it? U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are planning to build a $6 billion seawall 20 feet high in some places in Miami. It's going to go through downtown Miami neighborhoods and also Brickell, which if you guys didn't know, Brickell in Miami is the second highest density place in all of the United States after Times Square. It's only going to protect certain parts of downtown and not the city as a whole. So if you're going to buy property in Miami, which I would not recommend because they're just crazy overvalued, probably want to do it in that area where the wall's going to go. U.S. Geological Survey are saying that waters in the Great Salt Lake in Utah are now at a record low ever. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's another dam that's used for energy. And this is obviously another serious problem because they're literally running out of water in the West. I also wouldn't buy any property out there if I were you. And in unusual facts this week, the natural disasters, Turkey is being devastated by the fires. We have 30 cities and 98 different places in Turkey that are being affected. We also have fires in Oregon, Sardinia, the Western U.S., Finland, Brazil, and Central Africa. For example, places like Congo. There was a 6.1 earthquake in Peru that damaged a lot of buildings. It was in northern Peru. There was cracks that were left in buildings, and there was a huge crack in the ground that was just absolutely incredible to see. I hope everybody there is okay. There was a huge 8.2 earthquake in Alaska. There were tsunami warnings that went out, but due to the fact that it was so deep, it didn't set off quite a big tsunami. In northern India, a rock slide killed 9 people and destroyed a bridge. There were literally boulders the size of cars rolling down the hill. One of them just popped on another rock and just smashed the bridge. There was also another video that was an entire mountainside just giving way and going down. This is just incredible what I see happening, because I don't know if you guys see it, but I'm starting to see a pattern where these things are escalating over time. Northern Italy, in the city of Fidenza, there was huge, what do you call them? Hailstorms, these huge rocks of ice, which I believe is called hail. I've been doing videos in Spanish for too long. I can't remember the name in English. But they actually were so big that they were smashing windows in people's cars, and they had to stop on the highway because of it. The earth is moving in India. There was an amazing video where there was a piece of land that was literally just going up, where there was complete water. That was pretty incredible. Some people are saying that it's a tectonic plates. Others are saying that they're gas that's literally bubbling up. And in southern Brazil, very rare snowstorm and ice. There was a tweet that I saw of a 62-year-old man who's never seen snow before, and it started snowing in southern Brazil. And then we have flooding in China due to the typhoon. And a typhoon is basically a hurricane in Asia, just so you guys know. And what's happening is we have record droughts, we have record heat, and these levels of heat that we're starting to see, plants aren't able to survive in that kind of heat. They're not able to have photosynthesis, so keep that in mind. So we have the situation where we're missing water, we're having droughts, fires, we have all these things going on, and a lot of these places is where food is being grown. So maybe the preppers were right. You should probably buy some extra food just in case you can't find any. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button. We'll see you next week.